The average garage on a new Canadian home spans roughly 55 to 65 square meters. A studio apartment in Paris averages 25 square meters. In Amsterdam, 30 square meters. In Barcelona, 35 square meters. Canadians aren't just choosing to build garages bigger than European apartments. Their zoning codes effectively require it. And the reason traces back to a single federal agency that decided what your house had to look like before you could get a mortgage. In 1944, the Canadian government passed the National Housing Act, establishing what would become the Central Mortgage and Housing Corporation, or CMHC. Facing a massive post-war housing shortage, this federal agency funded construction while standardizing the entire building process. CMHC released a series of catalogued blueprints known as the Small House Design Scheme, selling full construction plans to the public and builders for $10. These packages carried immense financial weight. To access the federal mortgage insurance that made home ownership affordable for the average family, builders had to follow the CMHC's strict site planning rules. These regulations dictated precise property lines, minimum lot widths, side setbacks, and specific driveway dimensions. If a builder deviated from the federal template, the bank would deny the buyer mortgage insurance. By tying financial survival to physical geometry, CMHC ensured that its automobile-centric layout became the default template for the modern Canadian suburb, cementing the car's place on the property before a single brick was laid. In the 1960s and the 1970s, municipal planning departments across Ontario, Alberta, and British Columbia took this federal template and locked it into local law. Cities like Brampton, Calgary, and Surrey passed zoning bylaws requiring every new single-family home to provide at least 2 off-street parking spaces. Planners did not base this number on local transit studies or community needs. Instead, they copied the calculations directly from the American Institute of Transportation Engineers' Parking Generation Manual. To comply with this borrowed mathematical formula, a new house had to feature a double-car garage and a wide driveway. The requirement transformed the garage from an optional luxury into a mandatory zoning compliance tool. On a standard 15-meter-wide suburban lot, satisfying these local rules meant dedicating 40 to 50% of the home's front face to storing vehicles. A standard post-war suburban lot measured about 15 meters or 50 feet. Whoa. Across this span, a double-car garage required at least 5.5 meters of flat, horizontal clearance. Once sidewalls, structural supports, and municipal side yard setbacks were subtracted, the remaining frontage for the actual home shrank to a narrow sliver. The real spatial squeeze occurred during the 1980s and the 1990s. As land values climbed, developers began dividing suburban tracts into much narrower parcels. Rather than shrinking the garage or redesigning the home to place parking in the rear, builders kept the double-car garage as a non-negotiable feature. To make the math work on these tighter lots, they pushed the garage forward ahead of the rest of the structure. This architectural shift produced the snout house, a distinct suburban form where the garage door sits closest to the street, projecting ahead of the front entrance and casting the front door into the shadows. By the 1990s, this garage-forward layout dominated newly built subdivisions from Brampton, Ontario to Airdrie, Alberta, and Surrey, British Columbia. Walk down any of these suburban streets and the visual message is unmistakable. Front porches, bay windows, and entryways recede into the background, physically eclipsed by massive sheets of paneled metal. These neighborhoods communicate vehicle storage capacity long before they reveal human habitation. The streetscape belongs to the automobile. While Canadian municipalities watched this aesthetic take over, cities south of the border stepped in to halt the trend. In 2001, Portland passed zoning rules that banned the snout house outright, requiring garage faces to sit flush with or behind the main living area. Austin followed in 2009, restricting garage doors to a maximum of 30% of a home's front facade to preserve the pedestrian streetscape. In Canada, municipal councils chose a different path. Rather than regulating against the snout house to protect the quality of the public realm, cities preserved the strict off-street parking minimums that made the design necessary. The Snout house remained untouched, leaving developers to continue building neighborhoods that prioritized vehicle storage over residential design, solidifying a suburban form where the car is the focal point of everyday life. In 2023, a landmark report from the Canada Mortgage and Housing Corporation revealed a staggering reality. To restore housing affordability, the country needs to build an additional 3.5 million homes by 2030. Yet across Canada's suburbs, millions of square meters of fully serviced, structurally sound space sit locked away, legally reserved for vehicles. A standard Canadian double-car garage occupies between 55 and 65 square meters. In Paris, Amsterdam, or Barcelona, that exact footprint represents a comfortable studio or one-bedroom apartment, a complete home with a kitchen, bathroom, and living area. In Canada, this space is legally protected storage. If an ordinary homeowner wants to convert this existing structure into a secondary suite, a laneway home, or an affordable rental unit, they run headfirst into a wall of bureaucracy. Most municipal zoning bylaws classify garages strictly as non-residential. To legally convert one, owners are routinely forced to find a replacement parking space on their lot, endure complex variance hearings, and pay thousands of dollars in administrative fees. The physical structure is already there, often heated and connected to local utilities. The barrier to releasing this supply is not construction feasibility or a lack of land. It is a permitting system that structurally prioritizes the storage of private vehicles over housing people. Millions of potential homes remain frozen in place, serving as oversized closets while the nation faces its most severe housing shortage in a generation. In 2023 and 2024, the legal bedrock of Canadian parking requirements began to fracture. Municipal councils in Toronto, Vancouver, Calgary, and Edmonton moved to slash or outright eliminate parking minimums. This shift was not entirely voluntary. It was accelerated by federal leverage. Through the $4 billion Housing Accelerator Fund, the federal government began tying municipal grant money directly to zoning reform. To secure these federal millions, cities had to agree to strip away the rigid regulations that historically mandated vehicle parking over human housing. These reforms represent a genuine regulatory breakthrough, but their physical boundaries are tightly constrained. Most of these new parking-free policies apply almost exclusively to new multifamily constructions within walking distance of major transit stations or high-frequency bus corridors. Step outside of these designated urban transit zones and the geometry of the built environment changes. The vast existing suburban subdivisions built over the last 70 years remain firmly under the jurisdiction of the older car-first bylaws. In these neighborhoods, the double-car garage remains protected by the same legacy codes that have governed Canadian lot configurations since the Cold War. While urban cores are gradually permitted to build homes without cars, the sprawling suburbs that define the Canadian residential experience remain locked in a planning model that treats car storage as a non-negotiable right and housing as a secondary concern. The reform window has opened, but it remains a narrow aperture, leaving the legacy of the 20th century suburb largely untouched. Today, as millions struggle to find affordable homes, our suburbs remain bound by rules that legally prioritize cars over human shelter. Dismantling this concrete legacy is about deciding who our cities are actually built for. Share your thoughts below.